Welcome CSC 200 to part 2 of EX7A, and it's the first part of our EX7. We're not going to be communicating with a database yet, but we will be taking form information and displaying it on another page. We're going to be using our EX7. I have my htdocs folder open, and in Atom they call it a package. So we have this package open, and I'm going to go in here and look for my index page. Now, luckily, you'll find out your index page will be mostly done for you. So I'm not going to ask you to do a whole lot on your index page right now. And I already explained most of it on the last video. And just the only thing you're going to have to do on your index page, and it is index.html. It is not a PHP page. I have your form set up. And if you want to kind of open, if you want to open this in browser, you can do that. And this is what it'll look like. And keep in mind, if you just open in browser without opening it through MAMP and going your localhost, and notice it's not using localhost, it's not going through the server. That's why if I did something here, you'd probably get an error or something would happen because it's not going through your server. So don't use open in browser, or if you're in brackets, don't use that little preview thing. What you really want to do is when you go to, and let me close this up, is that when you go to MAMP and you go to my website, if you have my website, if you're in Windows, you're just going to have to go to localhost and you're going to go to EX7, and notice now it says localhost. So now it's going through the server, whereas before it was just going to the local place. So now it's going through the server and it should say localhost. So that's what you want to see, and this is what we have set up right now. So the HTML that we're looking at is just what we see. Now, keep in mind, I have my JavaScript. I left it in here for now. That's just the validation. But this is really the main content, and it's just basically a form. And there's an H1, and there's a form with four fields, 4 labels, and 4 fields, and it's done for you. And they're input text. They're all input text, except the button is input submit. And notice they all have names and they all have IDs, the IDs for JavaScript, and some of these have sizes so that you could adjust the size of the fields. And I even had some CSS in here to make it a little bit bigger, the font size, the font family, some margins, even the position of the fields. Otherwise they would go right after the text and they would be kind of uneven. So that's why I use that position relative, position absolute in the CSS. So that's the index page. The only thing you have to do on the index page is for the form, there needs to be an action that processes a form. A form needs to be processed when you hit a submit button. Something has to happen. It can't just do nothing. There's going to be form action and there's going to be method. They're going to notice it's all inside the form element, the opening tag. And the action is basically going to be the page that processes it, which is going to be display.a.php. So we're just going to go in here and just type that in. And it's .php, and it's not inside any folder because we're in this folder, so it's just going to be display.a.php. And the method is going to be post. We're going to use post right now, and we could use post or get, but for the time being we're going to use post, and I'll talk to you about the differences. And that's all we should need for this to make it actually work. So I'm going to save this, and when you see the blue circle, it's not saved, so I'm going to save it. And that file is going to be saved right now. So that's all we have to do in this page. You just have to put in display.a.php and then post. And then when we do B, when we work on the second part, you're just going to swap this out and put B in there. And it'll still be post. So now we're going to go to display A. Now what's in here, I took some of the stuff out, so you have to put in yourself. What you want to do is the information that people are putting in here, they're going to be using this information: name, first name, last name, species, and gender. These 4 things, and notice they're all put together. They have capital F, capital N, capital L, N, capital S, capital G, just like they were set up in the database as the fields. So we're going to use those. So that's how we're going to get the information, or how the information is going to be posted. And what we're going to do in our display, we're going to set this up, and we're going to do variables, and we're going to put $signs, and we'll call it, we'll just do them the same way. We'll call them first name, like that. And then we'll put equals, and remember in PHP we don't have to put var or anything. The $sign indicates that it's a variable, and we're going to do something called well, actually it's going to be post, and it's going to be underscore, and then it's going to be a bracket, and then with a quote inside there we're going to put the name that you want. So the first name will be first name, as long as it's like that. I'll put that in there. So it should look like that, and we're going to put, I believe, a semicolon at the end. PHP is really picky about semicolons, so it should look like that. It should be post underscore, and this is a method that kind of gets the information from a form. So this is pre-built to do that. And so after doing this, I'll just copy this one, and I'll do the second one because it'll be easy to change that to be last name. And I'll just change first to last. And then this part, I'll just copy the last name part just so I don't screw anything up and put that in here. And there's last name, although I put an F in there. So there's last name. And then the next thing, if you're not sure, go back and look. So we don't know if we did this right yet until we start to work on it, but you can just go back and check and make sure these are all set up like that. And the variables could be any way we want, but we set up the variables the same way as the names that they're being identified here in the index file. So back to display A, those are PHP, and notice that it has the starting PHP and the ending PHP tag that's in here, and that starts off the page. So I'll save this so far. And now it's our HTML, and we don't have a lot here. We just have a head tag, title, display new character, and we're going to be doing that. And also adding to the database. And we have some CSS here, and we're going to add some more CSS in this video. And then that's the end of our head tag. Remember, the styles are inside the head tag. And then we have the body, and we basically have a headline, a paragraph, and then a table. Now what's going to be in the table is going to be, we're going to echo that with PHP, and we're going to echo these things. We're going to put them in there. So what I'm going to do next is inside these PHP tags is I'm going to do echo, and what I'm going to echo first is I'm going to start a row, and remember this has to be in quotes, so I'm going to put a TR tag, so it's going to need the less than, greater than signs in here. So there's my TR, and remember everything needs a semicolon, so I'm going to put a semicolon here, and then I'm even going to I'll just copy this and put my closing TR. I'll just do a slash just so I don't forget. So there's my closing TR, and what I'll do here is I'll copy this again, and I'll put another TR in here, and this time I'll indent it so it'll just be a little easier. Maybe I'll indent it twice, and I'll make this a TD, and I'll do one here. And then remember the TD, when you want to concatenate, meaning you want to add strings. Now even though it's an HTML tag, it's a string, so we're going to do space dot space, and then we're going to put in the variable. The first one we're going to do is first name, so we'll put in first name, type it exactly the way it is, and it's actually, see, this kind of messes you up here. It's kind of showing a lowercase one, so I'll use this one, and there's first name, and then I'll do space dot space, and then I'll do a closing, I'll put my quotes and then do a closing TD tag, and that's the way it should end up. And I just need to copy this 4 times because we're going to have first name, last name. So it's echoing the TD dot. Remember, TD is a cell. This is the row, and these are the individual cells. So we have 4 cells or 4 columns kind of going across in one row. And these are the closing ones. And we all have quotes, we all have semicolons, we all have dots. So everything looks okay for now, and there's our opening and closing table tag. So this is our PHP section that's in here, and we're going to see if this works so far. So we're going to save this, and we'll just kind of leave it here, and we'll go back to our browser. And remember, you want to make sure it's localhost. It shouldn't say, you know, where it is on the hard drive. It should just say localhost. And I'm going to put something in here, and I'll put Larry. I'll try Larry Lobster, and he's male. And I'll hit new character, and what should happen is it should go to display a.php, and there it is. And what happened here? PPPP. So I have a problem here. It is displaying something. It's displaying P's, but it's not displaying the character. So I did something wrong in there, and let's check it out, what I did wrong. First name equals, and let me check this a second. Let me just make sure I have the code okay in here, that I did the post correct. Oh, I didn't do that correct. I was doing it by heart, and I forgot to do. So it's $_ post. So I did that wrong. So it's good to know that that's the wrong way to do it. Now, so that's we have post here. I put the underscore after it, so I did it wrong for you. So you're just watching that thinking, oh, that's the right way to do it. And it's not. It's $, underscore. I'm not sure why I put P's though, unless it used this somehow. So I'll do $, underscore. Yeah, and it shouldn't be in green like this. I should have known that it looked weird that it was kind of in that green color. I didn't even take note of that. It felt weird when I was typing it, but you know, that's how we find this out. Then I'll remember that just from doing it wrong. So there's no underscore after it. It's $, underscore post in front of it. So see, now I'll never forget that because I screwed it up after doing this. So I'll save that and I'll go back and I should be able to just refresh this one. Let's see if I could refresh it. And it'll say, do you want to confirm form? And there it is. Larry, Lobster, M. And basically it's since I didn't give a size on the table, it's basically making the table as big as the letters that are in it. So if you wanted to make the table a little bigger, you could make it pixels, you could make it a %. I think I made it a %. So I can go and do that. We could start messing with this a little bit now since it's kind of working. I'll go in the CSS, I have a margin there, and maybe I'll put a width. And I'll hit return here. I'll put a width, and maybe I'll put like 40%, and that's 40% of the window that it's in. So that's not very big. I had it 50 before, and I still had a lot of room. So, and I'll put a semicolon there. So width, colon, 40%. So that's my table. And like I said, I'm probably going to want to put a heading on here. So I'll save this. I'll just see what this looks like, and I'll just refresh it again. And you can see now it's spread out a little bit. And I guess that's okay. And what I'm going to do also is I'm going to put a heading on here. Now what I did last time is because it has to be another row, because remember here we want another row on top that says first name, last name, species, gender. We want another row on there. So I'm going to use something called a TH. So I'll go here, and what I'll do is I'll just copy this. I'll copy all this stuff here, and I'll just hit return and just put it before it. And this, instead of, it is going to be a TR, so we are going to have a TR. It's another row. Instead of, these things are going to be THs, so I'll just replace the H or the D with the H, and I'll put that in there. And I'll get rid of these because I don't want to have to do all that again. And this thing is basically going to be, we don't need to concatenate because we're not putting a variable in there. Actually, we can get rid of the quotes because this is all going to be together. So we do need the tags, but we don't need quotes. We don't need them to be, these can all be in one thing, and I'm just going to call it first name, like that. So they can have a space, and the quotes only wrap around the outside. We don't need, because the tag and the wording is all part of the HTML that's being echoed there. So we don't have to, this is different when we have these tags and then there's variables. So this can all go together. So now that I did it like this, I'm just going to copy this 3 more times. And then move this up. So we still have the row here. Seems to be remembering things here. And notice, so they should all be the same. Now to make it look a little nicer, we're even going to make a style here. We'll do a TH, and we'll do our opening and closing bracket here, and we'll do something like, I'll tab over, I'll do a font style or font weight, and do a bold. I'll just use bold here. And then I'll also do a font family. And again, this is the first time I'm doing this in Atom, but it seems to work okay. It seems to work a lot like brackets. And it's using sans serif, and I could put a couple in front of this. I could put, you know, Tahoma, comma, Arial, comma, Verdania, whatever. And also, I'll do it like this first because I just want to show you something. And let's see if this works. So I'll save this. And again, even without even going back. Now you could use the back button. I mean, you could do this, and you could try putting in, you know, Tommy Tuna. I was just making that up. I don't think there's a Tommy Tuna, although there could be. There's tuna fish, and Tommy's a male. So we'll hit insert new character, and there it is. And you can see that they get messed up, and that's because the headers by default, they're centered. So if we can't see the cells here, but they're centered over the cell. So if we wanted to change that, I would go back here and I would just go into my CSS and I would just do one little CSS thing for the TH, and I would just use, it's just something called text align, and there's text align, and then left. Oh, that works pretty good. That worked good. Seems to work better than some of the other ones. So text align left. So if I save that, that should update it, and I get that. So now it's kind of lined up. So that's all we're doing for EX7A, display A. So we're calling this A. So we're just getting the practice of taking information that's inserted into a form and displaying it on a page. So we're doing that first before we get into the whole database, because that, you know, obviously opens up a whole bunch of other issues that we have to worry about. And there's a lot of things going on here. We got CSS, we got HTML, we got PHP, all kinds of stuff here. It's a lot to kind of keep track of. So you know, it's hard kind of working with all these, especially if you haven't been doing a lot of one or the other. It's a lot to kind of take in. There's CSS, there's PHP, there's HTML, all these kind of things here. But as long as you can kind of see what we're doing, we're using this, and I'm not going to make a huge deal about this because the important thing is the database stuff. But this is just kind of the start, that we're learning to take information from our index, which was this, and by using this form action, we're sending it to the next page, and then we're translating these names as variables and then using them. So that's how we're going to actually add elements to our database. So the information in here that we generated on a page, you know, right now it's just on a page, but we're going to add this to our database. That's what we're going to do next. So in our next kind of part of the exercise, I'll have you do A as a separate thing, and then after that we'll do B, and then we'll really dig into this. But we'll let you get started with A, and then you can send me your EX7 file, and I'll take a look at it and make sure everything's working in the A part. And then when you're done with the B, then you'll send me the B part. So that's the end of EX7A SpongeBob form. What we'll be working on next will actually be inserting these things into our SpongeBob database.